Welcome everyone to a short session on how to have better online meetings. It's become a fact of life for many of us due to COVID. And even as we return to something that seems a little bit more normal, I suspect that online meetings and them being more prevalent are going to be here with us for quite a while, so we need to learn how to do it well. So, in the course of this time, we want to spend some time talking about how we improve the experience and the outcomes for everyone. This should take no more than 20 minutes, that's my plan. If you happen to be one of the few who get an opportunity to watch this live, please do keep your screens on. I'd like to see you. Keep your mics off. Download the follow along. There's two links to the right. They're bit.ly links, so if for some reason they're not clickable on your screen, they're easy to remember and copy down. One's a Google Doc, the other is a PDF that you can print. Either way, grab something if you want to take notes. Follow those links. Now, as we go along, please do ask questions using the chat feature. With that, let me ask you a little bit, or let's briefly talk over what it is we're going to talk about. We've got 5 major topics. They're also listed here so that you can track them. The pitfalls involved in meetings and online meetings in particular, how to prepare yourself, how to prepare your team, how to structure the meeting because so much of it goes into the structure that you put in place, and then how to facilitate it. You'll also see here that I list lagniappe. Lagniappe is a term from Southern Louisiana. It means that little bit extra that you get for free. So if we have time and I'm under my limit, we'll give you a little bit more to get the most out of this presentation. So with that, here are the standard meeting pitfalls. We've been tracking this for years. I've been teaching a course on how to do better meetings and working with teams on better meetings on and off for 15 years. And these are the kind of comments that come up all the time. The meeting's unnecessary. We don't have the right people here. People are showing up, but they're not prepared. They're not focused. If it gets into a meaty topic, we're not really candid. We're not showing candor with one another. The meetings, generally speaking, go way too long and produce too little for the time invested. There's often lack of follow-through. And the kicker with all this is that we seem to keep making these mistakes over and over again. Now, with that, those are normal meetings, but pause and think about the online meetings that you've been a part of in the last 2 weeks or a month. Which of these also apply to your online meetings? Take just a second and type those up in the chat feature. And while you're doing that, I'm going to continue. What we find over and over again is that, oh wow, yeah, people are saying the same things about the meetings that they have. They still are too long. They're still guarded. But there's some additional issues that apply particularly to online meetings. First of all, we're having way too many of them. Now, we had too many other meetings before, but now it seems for many of my clients that the gates have been unleashed. The people who structure meetings think that just because people are at home now, you can do back to back to back to back to back Zoom meetings all day long. People are getting really frustrated with this. On top of that, there's the very obvious difference is you can't see one another very well. You don't have that same experience of the others in the room as you do when you're in person, which causes some real issues. There's also, of course, the technological problem for everyone. Background noise, you can't connect, there's audio delays, feedback, etc., which then just compounds. It takes up time to fix it, and it brings up irritation. So on top of the normal meeting pitfalls, we have these in particular that we need to address, which should raise the question, do we really need to meet at all? I mean, what is the purpose? Yes, we must actually continue to meet if we need to transmit the same message to everyone at once. That's called synchronous communication, when we need all eyes and ears together at the same time. The reason why is that oftentimes for some meetings, that is, we have people need to be thinking alongside one another. We're trying to make a decision in real time. We're trying to problem solve, fix something that's broke, uncover something, create a plan. Well, the challenge is that we need to hear one another and have our ideas build off of one another. And it doesn't work if we try to do something like an email chain. So that's one reason why, in fact, we do need to continue to meet. But this should be a pause for you to think if there are other ways that you can get your message across. You might want to give your people a break from another Zoom meeting if you can send them a quick email, if you can do a chat, if you can have one-on-ones that in fact might be more effective. With all that, here's the one caution I just want to say. Don't let convenience, and this is too often the reason why we actually have a meeting. It's because it's more convenient for the person who is calling the meeting to talk to everybody at once, say something that they could have done through an email, that they could have done in one-on-ones. Don't let convenience be your only reason for scheduling a meeting. Now, assuming you say, yes, we're going to do a meeting. All right, let me point out two big picture jobs that you have if you're going to be effective in your meeting. First of all, you need to get stuff done. That's the arrow that you see on the left side of your screen, the task arrow. And there's certain pieces that are necessary in order to get the task done, like right people, preparation, approach, and so forth. We'll touch on that in just a minute. But also for the meeting to be effective, we've got to address people's human needs. Okay, people need to be included. They need to have influence. They need to have voice, is the term that's used. And with that, if we have people whose needs are being met personally and socially and psychologically, and we're getting stuff done, we have great meetings. That's actually the goal that we're trying to create through the interventions that we take. So with all that, let's talk about how we get started. First of all, you must prepare yourself. The first thing I want you to do is to determine the objectives and outcomes of that meeting. Now, what is an objective? An objective is thinking through in your head. It's kind of wrapped up in purpose, but it's what you want to be different for the people who are in the room once you're done. So at the end of this meeting, people either will know something they didn't know before, they will feel something they didn't feel before, or they'll be able to do or will in fact do something they've done before. That's an objective. You see examples on the screen. We want them to know the status of our rollout, to feel a sense of urgency, to be able to proactively support it. Okay, those are all tight objectives. They all in fact link to one another. You don't have to have an objective in each of those three domains, no field do, but you need to have an objective and be able to clarify how will people be different at the end of the meeting, which is not exactly the same as the outcome. So you need to think of both objectives and outcomes for the meeting. What will be in hand when you're done? You'll have a plan, you'll have a decision, you'll have a document, etc. Those are outcomes. So a detailed plan that talks about what people's specific accountabilities for the rollout would be, that's an outcome. Maybe the most important and the most overlooked step in most meetings is failure to be clear on what are the outcomes and what are the objectives. So do that first. Secondly, identify the meeting. Now, we think all meetings are the same. In fact, they're not. Many meetings are what we would call the routine meetings. They're the check-ins. They're the staff meetings. We all gather in the room. We kind of go around the table. We just kind of give each other a what's up, what we're working on, and further information from there. The other type of meeting is what's called ad hoc. That's not a particularly creative title. It's Latin. It just means it sprung up for a particular need. We're here to solve a problem. It's not a standard group. We don't meet on a regular basis. We're stepping in because of a particular need that we're trying to address. A problem to figure out, a decision to make, a plan to create. The reason why you want to identify the meeting type is because that will determine the next two two ways you need to prepare yourself. It will determine who needs to attend, right? So who needs to attend? You should be able to say for each invitation that goes out to each person that they are being asked in this room because I need their input, or they're going to be involved in executing the plan. They approve what we're about to do, okay? Like my manager might need to be in the room. We're here because it's a development issue, or we want your just buy-in so that you can support it. Facilitation is actually the last. It's a meeting role. It's the ability to guide the conversation, and some people tend to be a little bit better at that. So those are reasons to have someone in a meeting. If you can't put your finger on one of those when you're kind of creating your list of who needs to be in the meeting, again, maybe you give them a break. You can send them an email afterwards. Finally, with that, you create your agenda. Okay, we're going to go into that a little bit more in the structure section that follows here in just a moment. But remember I said there's two types of meeting. For the routine meeting, you don't need to spend a lot of time creating an agenda on your own beforehand. Remember, this is just getting together, reporting out to one another, seeing how people are doing, and then thinking through what's up for us as a group, what's most important. What you do is you just allow people to talk through, here's what I've got going on for the week, or here's what I think. And then you come back and say, okay, so what is it we need to, as a group, dig into? And in a given week, you might say, no, we're good. We got our updates and we're ready to go. Or John over here has a particular issue and we need to help him problem solve that. But you'll find that out after you go through. So no need to spend time doing the other structuring. You can create that real quickly as you are together in group. In an ad hoc meeting, that's where you need to put in the preparation. And most of the other tips that I give now are going to be primarily for those ad hoc meetings. Those are the ones you need to be more deliberate about. Okay, so preparing your team. That's our second major topic, or I guess third major topic now, is to prepare your team. Three things I want you to do is I want you to assign roles, set ground rules, and discuss team behaviors. 3 roles. Role number 1 is that of facilitator. This is the person who is guiding the meeting. It can be, and again, this is we're getting together to plan the rollout. We're getting together to solve the problem. It's a special meeting with a real purpose. So we want somebody who's just lasered in on the process itself, how well people are connecting, how well they understand what it is we're trying to do, the degree to which people are participating, so that we're getting all voices, right? That's what a facilitator does. They make sure everybody's involved. They've got a couple of tasks. They create the agenda, they send it out to everyone, but then their main job is really to make sure people are fully engaged in the meeting itself. That's first role. Second role is timekeeper. When meetings go on and on and on and on and on because we let them go on and on and on and on, there's always more that can be said. Okay, so part of this is teams learning to have a discipline that we said we're going to allot 30 minutes for this, and in fact, we know how to get to the point. We know how to be crisp, okay? But part of helping us with that is having someone who simply says, hey, if we said we've got a half hour for this discussion, they say, okay, I've got it, y'all get started, and all they do is they keep track of the clock. 5 minutes left to go, they remind everybody, hey everybody, 5 minutes. And when time's up, they simply say time. They're not the police person in the room. They don't make you stop, but then it's up to the group. Do we allow more time for this particular topic? If so, how much? And note that that time must come from some other topic on the agenda. Okay. Otherwise, we say we're going to table it. Here's where we are right now. Let's move on to the next piece. There's timekeeper, and then there's scribe. Okay, someone who's actually responsible for keeping notes during the meeting and getting the notes out to everybody afterwards so that we can keep moving forward. This is also part of making sure stuff gets done is having someone who can keep track of the important points. Now, those are the assigned rules. Then you need to go ahead and set ground rules. Now, this is not an exhaustive list that I have in front of you, but you ought to think through. You may have very strong opinions about it yourself. Your team may have very strong opinions about it, but you need to think through topics like attendance. Do we all have to be here every time? Can we miss? If so, what are the reasons why I can miss or I can be late? Are we going to start on time? Now, that is a best practice. Start when you say you're going to start and when you say you're going to end. However, that's also somewhat subject to the culture of your group. So you need to have the discussion. Will we start on time? Will we end on time? What is our real starting time? Will we have breaks? How often will we meet? What should participation be like? What are the kind of the ground rules of just being a good participant? Now, I'm suggesting that 3 on the screen before you, your screens need to stay on, okay? And mics stay off, and that's just so you don't have the feedback issues. But the screen's on keeps folks honest. You need to be looking at the screen, because remember, one of the issues of online meetings is we can't see each other. So you need to give the other people on your team the opportunity to notice your facial expressions, to notice when you're on board or you're scowling or things don't work, okay? So do them a favor, face the camera, and no multitasking. It's even harder to multitask when you're alone and just in front of a camera, because the only input you have from other people is coming through that speaker. You don't have the other subtle nuances that you'd get if you were in person. So, no multitasking. It truly tunes you out from anything that's going on in the rest of the meeting. You need to talk about dress. What's okay with your group? Is it okay to eat or drink or not? You must come prepared. Now, those are the basic ground rules that any group needs to talk through. And that's just called just being a good meeting participant. Teams, though, and if you're part of a team that you're getting, that you're planning on having these online meetings, you need to talk about team behaviors. Now, conflict. Depending upon how COVID goes, you may not be able to get together with one another in person and, quote, save it for then. So when do you get into the meaty stuff? I suggest you do it now. Too often, this is a graphic that's given by Pat Lencioni, author of 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, where he talks about different types of conflict, constructive and destructive, right? And if we go too far to either end, we get either artificial harmony or just bloody knuckles from knocking each other out because it's so brutal. The place we want to be is right in the middle, where we're candid and open and honest. But you need to have this talk with your folks to talk about, hey, what can we talk about? Can we really dig in and be candid with one another about ideas? Can we disagree? What does that sound like? The second thing is we need to talk about listening. We need to have some kind of understanding about listening with one another. We should all be responsible for balancing participation. So if I'm very verbal, that's incumbent on me to remember, hey, I'm part of a team, so I'm going to be quiet. If I'm very quiet, I need to push myself to engage. We need to advance ideas clearly. Okay, clearly, specifically, succinctly. Get to the point, get your idea out there. But if the rest of the team is not diving into it, then you need to be able to say, okay, I'm willing to go with the wisdom of the group. Here's what I do, actually. I counsel my coaching clients who are sometimes passionate. State your idea once. If the group doesn't seem to be getting on board, state your idea a second time, try to change the words, assume maybe it was a communication error on your part. If after 2 times with 2 different ways of saying it, people aren't buying in, you may have the smartest idea in the world, but in fact, your group's not ready to go with you. So it's time to say, you know what? I'm going to go with the wisdom of the group on this one, even though I disagree on the point itself. But we'll go do it your way. Last point is confidentiality. When we're a team, we've got, in order for us to conflict well, to discuss, to get into meaty issues, we've got to know that, the things that we say in our meetings just stay between us. So these are important to talk about with your team and gain some agreement. And these three pieces, assign roles, set ground rules, and discuss team behaviors, is how you prepare your team. Now, structure the meeting. I've got 5 elements up here that should be part of every meeting that you have. First, do a check-in. A check-in is real simple. It acknowledges that we are social beings, and we've got other things going on in our lives. So, hey, everybody, let's do a quick round robin. Hey, how have things been going this week? What's going on with you? And this is where people can share a little bit about their personal lives, their kids, whatever is bugging them. The other path to do this is to simply recognize someone else. I may not have much I want to share about me, but you know what? I want to recognize Sue. Sue really helped me out on that report. We did some collaboration in between our meetings here, and she was great. So I want to give it up for Sue. Right? That's how we use check-ins. We're connecting on a human level. Then we do a quick review of the agenda. That is, go through the list of topics that we have put together for this ad hoc meeting. Ask for any additional ones that we need to add, but just be aware that we've got to shift times at that point. This shouldn't take much time. The bulk of our time is spent on the agenda items themselves. Now, as you put together the agenda that has check-ins, agenda review, and the various agenda items, for each agenda item, if it's on the agenda, there's a reason it's on the agenda. What is the desired outcome of that discussion? Everybody will be on the same page about X. This goes back to our objectives that we talked about. People will know this new set of facts or this new plan that we've got in place. People will buy into X, Y, Z. That's the desired outcome. So it gets people really clear what it is you're driving to, why we're talking about this. And then what's the process? Is this going to be just a lecture? Is this a question and answer? Do we have a formal decision process we're going to follow? Be clear on people. People can participate a whole lot better when they know how they're supposed to participate. And what's the time frame for the topic? That's for each agenda item. When we're done with the agenda, you need to save about 10 minutes in the end to do a responsibility matrix. Things don't get done because some people take some of their individual notes. People kind of nod. But there's not a place for people to say, hey, we said it's important for us to create a new marketing approach, okay, to create a new ad. All right, so who's got the A on that? Who's accountable for that? Who's going to help or have the R's? If you're familiar with the RACI format, this is my version of using that. It's pretty good. But anyway, the idea is who's doing what, how are we going to communicate with one another, and to make sure that this big picture piece that we all agree is important actually gets pushed across the finish line. Finally, you need to leave 2 minutes at the end of every meeting to evaluate the meeting itself. The meeting itself will be good, bad, and different, but I suggest you ask for both the pluses, the things that worked well, and for the deltas. What do we need to change? Each person needs to give at least one comment. No fair being silent. So we were all part of the meeting. If you just think it was okay, that's okay. Say what your thing was. We'll get better at meetings when we evaluate each meeting. Now, that's your structure. That's a little bit about how to run it. If you're the facilitator, here's some pieces that I suggest to you. These are just tips from having done this for a while. Follow your agenda. Stay on track, right? You do have time at the very beginning where people can say, hey, I want to add a topic. But your job is to help people stay with it and move through. Start on time when you say you're going to start. Require that every person have video and that video be on. We just don't do good in the dark, okay? It's too tempting to work on other things. So, you know what? I need to see your face. You need to see my face. We're going to have this meeting. We're going to both be engaged. So, video's on. Get to the point. Call on people. So, here's a suggestion. If you've got a team, I like the checkerboard view where I can see people. And so, particularly if I'm facilitating, I can say, Jeff, you're quiet about that. Or, John, do you have a thought? Mary, what could you add to that? It's much easier when you can see people in the checkerboard. Use breakout rooms purposefully. That is when we want to have small discussions that then provide ideas to a larger group. That's what breakout rooms are for. Chat windows are a great place to share the agenda, any links to any articles or resources that come up. Coach people on how to use chat because not everybody's good at it. Don't put off the tough issues till a later date. And finally, end early. If you can finish before you said you will, first of all, you're going to win points. It means you're doing other things very well. You're structuring it, you're thinking about it, you're being specific and to the point. But you're honoring people's time, and people appreciate that. The last thing, though, I'll say about facilitation, and I've alluded to it already, the art of facilitation is helping people who are unique individuals merge together and be open and candid and vulnerable and totally with one another so that we get the best thinking from everybody, the best contributions. That's done. One of the real tools that a facilitator has is just an awareness of your own feelings. If you're getting agitated by how things are going, to be able to say, you know what, team, can we pause for just a second? This isn't working for me right now. How do others feel? Use your own experience, your willingness to share that, and reflect it back to others as a way to check in how people, everybody may feel differently, but usually if you're feeling something, various members are picking up on some of those same currents. So you want to be able to draw that out. A facilitator, a good facilitator, is a very powerful place to be, but it's also a place where if you're doing it well, you're going to be very vulnerable to the group. So much more on that in another video at another time. Here's the lagniappe piece. We're at just 27 minutes. Real quick, if this is not just about you leading a meeting, this is also you're on a team. You want to make the most of your presence, right? So you want your points to be convincing. And yes, there's all the preparation. I'm assuming you got the best idea anyway. But here's how to use the medium well so that it supports your being influential. First, focus on the camera. It's too easy to focus on your picture of yourself. That's where actually research says we look more at ourselves than we even look at other people. But when we're looking at other people and they're a little bit off center, it's not the same effect as somebody looking you in the eyes. So get comfortable starting to stare into that dot that's the camera right in front of you. Maintain a strong voice, okay? This might involve a little bit of practice in front of a mirror or with somebody, but you must project. A strong voice says you're confident, you're comfortable, which makes you more convincing. Frame yourself. That is, take a picture beforehand, test your video setup. Make sure that you more or less fill the frame with who you are and that there's not distracting things around you. Be present. Don't tune out. Don't distract other people. So this is a real key. You stay on mute, right, unless you're speaking. And finally, use the chat window, but use it in a way to be supportive. Hey, great comment. Thanks for the contribution. I really like what you said there. And of course, I'm asking you to be sincere, but those are the kind of things that make people feel better and more open and willing to what you have to say. So that's what we have today for how to do better online meetings. I hope you've gotten a lot out of it. On the screen right now, you'll see my contact information. So reach out to me. Let's keep in touch. And who knows, maybe at one time we'll do it through an online meeting.